Hi all, this is a return to the system which was powered by a G3260 CPU. So what I've done is dropped in at i5 4570, and what I'll do is run the Heaven and Valley graphical benchmarks and the same games for the i5 as I did for the G3260 and just talk about the performance. So I've run the graphical benchmarks Heaven and Valley, and on the G3260 we got a score of 1732, and on the i5 1741, but this is all about the graphics really, so that upshift in performance is not too high. And it's the same with Valley. On the G3260 getting a score of 3177 and the i5 3338, so a little bit more of an upshift but not by much. So what I'll do now is run the same games on the i5 as I did in the previous video with the G3260 and see what scores we get. So on to Doom Eternal. I've kept all the settings as they were for the G3260 test. So at the moment it does nudge 60, and I've got this capped at 60 frames per second anyway. So I'll just upgrade this weapon. And what I'll do is I'll try and get on the next stage so you can see the performance. Low to mid 50s, which is just fine really. Occasionally mid 40s, depending on what's going on. But I'd say there's definitely there's going to be less dips in that frame rate having the i5 in place now compared to the G3260, which was only a dual core, this being a quad core CPU. Right, so that's Doom Eternal. Right, onto Cyberpunk, and I've run the in-game benchmark with exactly the same settings as I did for the G3260. There's one thing that does stand out, is that minimum is almost the same as maximum, which is ideal, because for the G3260, looking at the video I did for that minimum was quite low. So there's definitely on these settings definitely going to be less stuttering, and it does actually give you a bit more headroom to adjust the quality or resolution or both, whichever you're happy with, in the settings to play Cyberpunk. Onto another thrilling screen for Red Dead Redemption 2. So I've run the in-game benchmark. That maximum is a good upshift comparing the i5 to the G3260, and the average is much higher as well. And same for minimum, that's definitely closer to the maximum, which is ideal. So there might be a bit of headroom to get some of those settings adjusted accordingly to your liking. So that's Red Dead Redemption 2. Onto Forza Horizon 4. Now the target and achieved are bang on 60 frames per second, so there's definitely a bit headroom to get the quality and resolution upshifted. Also the CPU simulation and renderer values are definitely higher when comparing to the G3260. Okay, so that's Forza Horizon 4. Now I didn't benchmark this game on the G3260, but I thought I'd do it as a bonus just so you can see what this i5 can do. Shadow of the Tomb Raider. So I've kept the resolution at the maximum 1920 by 1080, and I've selected the low graphical preset. So as with all my benchmarking and games, start at the bottom and work your way up until you get a frame rate and quality, graphical quality combination you're most comfortable with. So I'll run the benchmark and report back. Benchmarks finished, and we get an average of 59 frames per second, which is just fine. So what I'll do is I'll increase that preset to medium and run the benchmark again, just see what results we get. So after setting the preset on the graphics to medium, I've run the benchmark again. We get average of 43 frames per second. So it's entirely up to you which you want, either medium or low, depending on that frame rate, if you want it high or low. Well, relatively low anyway. But as I keep saying, on this size monitor, a lot of those settings, you can't tell the difference really between medium and low. Okay, so that's Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Just to sum up then, I've dropped in an i5 into this system and run the same benchmarks as I did with the G3260 CPU. Now looking at Heaven and Valley, there's not that much difference because those two graphical benchmarking tools are really reliant on the GPU performance rather than CPU, so there's not that much difference. But in real world gaming, there's not only an upshift in performance, but also the minimum and maximum frame rates in a lot of the games are close to each other, which is ideally what we're aiming for. So there's less stuttering as you're playing the games in various scenarios. So upgrading to the i7 was the i5 was well worth it. So if you've got any queries on this build as it stands, just drop me a comment below, and thanks for watching.